Hello, good evening everyone. Hope you've had a really nice evening so far. So, finishing on the last talk for today, and it is a little bit less code, but a little bit more of what I think is an absolute crucial skill to carry throughout your career. So this is salary negotiations, pay reviews, and the impact on pay inequity by Parul Singh. That's me. So this is me. You can scan that now if you want, but I'm going to share it afterwards anyway. I'm a senior talent acquisition partner at xDesign. So I mentioned earlier, I've been at the company for about 2 months. Previously, I was working in agency recruitment. I do learn to code a little bit. I think a lot of what Peter said did definitely go over my head, so I'm not quite at that level, but it's something that I do enjoy. It helps me a lot with my job, and I think the main thing that I'm really passionate about is helping people that need a bit of a helping hand, because I think navigating the job market, particularly in tech right now, is just absolutely insane. So I love sharing articles, I love doing talks, and if there's anything that I say that raises any questions at any point and you want to grab me, please do contact me on LinkedIn, and we'll get straight into the talk. That's just the contents, but the talk's going to be split into 2 parts. So the first part, I'm going to talk about salary negotiation. So what is negotiation and why is it so important, especially when it comes to negotiating a new job offer? The negotiation funnel, so this is something that I created today. The impact on pay inequity, getting you to understand your full package and like what can you actually negotiate, how to position yourself right from the initial contact. So a lot of people think you just negotiate at the end. That's wrong. You need to be doing it all the way through. And then finally, how you negotiate at the offer stage. And then, of course, when you're in a new job, people will say, oh, you know, we'll do like pay reviews maybe like once a year or something, but you need to learn how to advocate for yourself as well. So I'm going to talk you through what a brag document is, why I think you should do one, and some things that you can possibly include on there. So let's get into it then. So firstly, salary negotiation. So this is a great quote. So it's a book called Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. Negotiation is not an active battle, it's a process of discovery. The goal is to uncover as much information as possible. So, can I have a show of hands who has ever negotiated a job offer? I'm sure there must be a few people in here. Okay, great. It can feel like a little bit of a battle sometimes. You feel like it's a little bit of going backwards and forwards. And the frustrating thing is, there's a lot of people who are job seekers, you're not trained in negotiation. I've been a recruiter for 3.5 years. I do this on a weekly basis. So it's almost like things are made a little bit more difficult for you. But a lot of the time, your first offer is not the best offer. And if you don't negotiate, you are probably leaving some money on the table. So this is not just great to negotiate your package, but it's also great to negotiate your promotions, your pay reviews. So do recommend this book. So do give it a read. I've gone backwards. Oh, it's so light. I can't really see it, but I think we're all good. Didn't really think about the graphics going on here. So there's so many elements to negotiation, but I've just picked out the key parts and I'm going to read through it in case you can't read it. So the first one is confidence. Now, I get a lot of people approaching me. Over the past 12 months, I've helped around 50 people negotiate their packages. And I'm going to be really honest, I feel like a bit of a fraud because I don't actually feel like I've told them anything drastically special, anything that they didn't know before. I think the biggest thing that I've ever done is instill the confidence in somebody that A, this is a very normal part of the process, and B, actually back yourself and back your ability. And this actually includes people who are negotiating their first job offer, and the screen's gone. Is it scheduled to turn off? So honestly, confidence is like the biggest thing. I really don't think there's anything big to it. Hiring managers, Chris, you've engaged in one of the previous workshops I did before. He's putting you on the spot. So Chris was at the one that I did with Manchester Codes, and I love that like you put into the chat and you said, I'm a hiring manager. It tends to be a normal part of the process. So normalising it, having the confidence to actually back yourself. Knowledge of the market. Okay, so I think I've seen some articles and they say, look at Glassdoor. I'm just going to say it's like wildly inaccurate. So you've got some really good sources of information. Talk to your peers who are in similar roles or who work in roles that you would like to work in. Talk to agency recruiters. Now, I'm not even an agency recruiter anymore, but they're probably some of the best people to tell you what kind of ranges are on the market. And remember, these are going to vary wildly. So this is why you have to look at the full package, which we'll talk about in a minute. Relationship and trust. So who are you going to be negotiating with? Chances are it could be an internal recruiter, it could be a hiring manager. So actually building a relationship based on trust, because people want to help people that they like. So like, be nice to them, they'll probably give you what you want. And I can't even read that one. Okay, communication. So learning how to like communicate, like, are you using the right kind of language? Alternative. So negotiation isn't black and white. It's not, okay, you want to give me this, I want this, okay, we'll just give you that. Like, there's probably going to be a little bit of backwards and forwards, and you need to know, what can I settle on? What is my absolute, what's my ideal? What's my absolute minimum that I'm going to accept for this? So you need to know what your options are, essentially. And I don't know why this is at the bottom, but I actually think this is one of the best things that you can have, is actually support. Like I said to you, people come to me and they ask me for like advice as well, and sometimes you just need someone to tell you, like, just go and do it. Like, this is essentially what I advise you to do. So someone like me, I'm happy to help people if I have like capacity to do it. If I don't, if there's anybody that like maybe you've worked with, more senior position, who has that kind of knowledge, go to them for like the support, because I can't give you textbook advice on how to negotiate right here, right now. So you're not going to go away with that. I'm sorry to disappoint. But because every situation is different, so I can't say, if this happens, do this. So you need to be going out and asking people, okay, what would you do in this scenario? Okay, so I'd love to get some thoughts. If everybody could just open up, there's going to be just a handful of interactivity slides, so you can keep it open. You can either scan the QR code, or you can go to slido.com. I think this is fine. Yeah, I think so. Should do. It should work. I hope people are able to get onto it.
It's a tad small for subphones,
I
I think.
know. Google Slides need to work on that. What? Yeah. But I mean, if you just put in the website, it's if anybody's struggling to see it, it's slido.com. Oh, here we go. Fabulous. Okay. Yeah, we've definitely got a little bit of a mixed bag. Yeah, thought that was probably going to be right. So like I said, confidence is definitely probably one of the biggest things. We're going to have a couple more going in there. I was going to go to the next one now, but you can also contribute on that. So you got a little text input. You can only do one, by the way, so think wisely. So what comes to mind when you think about negotiating your salary or negotiating pay? What feelings, what does it make you think? I feel like a therapist right now. Losing the offer, yeah, we're going to cover all this. Yeah, feeling pushy. How much can you ask for? That's a very good question. Like, what is the realm of reasonable where you feel like it's okay to ask for, and what do you think is maybe pushing it a little bit? Fear of rejection. Is that one really big because loads of people put it? Must be. Okay, cool. So anyone who put fear of rejection, do you mean fear of them just saying no, or fear of them pulling the offer? Bit of both? Yeah, all right, fair enough. Someone else who will happily accept the offer. Well, you've got to think they offered you for a reason. So, and interviewing is a very expensive process. Imposter syndrome. Am I good enough for the money that I'm asking for? Yeah, all very, very good points. Best paid few hours of your life. Again, I'm going to talk about the impact of not negotiating in a minute, and you're going to probably be really shocked about what you could lose. So, some stats as to how this, and a lot of those reasons, imposter syndrome, lack of confidence, fear of losing the offer, how does this contribute to pay inequity? 45% of women have not attempted to negotiate the salary compared to 34% of men. So that's quite a difference. 41% of LGBTQI plus men felt their pay is an accurate representation of their work compared to 52% of heterosexual men. These are some hard to swallow stats, but I think it's the difficult conversations that we need to talk about the most. And 42% of black professionals do not receive a pay increase after negotiation compared to 20% of white professionals. This is all detailed in the Robert Walters Diversity and Inclusion Strategy report. So whether you're a hiring manager or whether you're a candidate, salary negotiation actually does matter, not just for you, but for other people as well. So again, just nice little diagram, but I'll go past that. So here's a number. I don't think anyone's going to be able to guess it. So over a 20-year period, if you simply negotiated your starting pay from 25,000 to 30,000 with no other negotiations, that's your potential loss of earnings. This also doesn't include pension. So this isn't even when you've moved jobs, this is just your starting salary. Now this is a hypothetical model, but that's why I did it over 20 years, because there's obviously going to be a lot of factors involved. This is the number of potential loss if you negotiated your salary 5 times in a 20-year period. It's quite a lot of money, right? It's a house. Well, a one-bed flat in London, I guess. Or a bed sit. Sorry, no hate to London. Nice little diagram there. So if you see where the green arrows are, this is where you've moved jobs. So if you see it's a drastic difference, you think, oh, do you know what, like, I'll just take it. There's no point in negotiating. I feel really awkward. I feel really pushy. It's a good salary. Look at those numbers and tell me it's not worth it, okay? So if you take anything from this, please make it this diagram. I beg. Okay, so you've done your market research. You spoke to recruiters. Now, there's so many different parts of the package. So I'll talk to you about a case study. So there's a guy that I was talking to recently, and he'd been at his company for 7 years. Now, he'd got an offer, and the offer was not much higher than kind of like what he was on at the moment. It was like a decent increase. But then he was taking into account his pension as well. So his pension at his current company was 10%. And the pension contribution from his new offer was only about 3%. So when you look at them on paper, you're like, okay, yeah, an all right step up. But he actually realised that it wasn't actually going to be that much of a difference. It actually does have a happy ending, because he did then say, look, he presented that to them. It's okay to say this. You can say, look, this is what my full package brings me to. I don't think that this is a decent enough step up, but it did turn out he was at the top of their salary band. So he ended up taking that offer anyway, because it was just a really good move from him, a great opportunity, but just an example of take all of these factors into account. So I separate them into tangible benefits and non-tangible benefits. So a tangible benefit is something that is going to increase your take-home pay immediately. So that is like a work from home budget, so stuff that you'd be spending on anyway. I interviewed for one of the fan companies, and they were like £3,000 a year work from home budget, $75 a month for work from home stipends because your bills increase. And I was like, well, that's more money in my pocket. Like, it was pretty good, to be fair. Not meant to be saying that, but anywho, you know, like all your bonus and everything, things like stocks and shares, really ask them about how do they work. There's like vesting, right, I'm not a finance person, there's vesting periods, there's all sorts of like crazy things, which essentially means if you leave within X period, you actually don't get anything. So just make sure that you figure out what it is. And obviously free fruit and veg in the office definitely doesn't count. So just throwing that in there. So who has had this conversation with a recruiter ever? Can I have a show of hands where people just won't tell you what the salary is? Yeah, lots of people. Okay, it's really frustrating. I don't believe that somebody's pay should be dictated by how well you negotiate, which is ironic because I'm here, right? But I'm trying to fight the good fight. So if you've ever had a recruiter reach out to you and they say, and you're like, okay, I'm interested in this role, and they say, what are your salary expectations? You absolutely don't have to give a number. The first person to give a number, you're at a disadvantage. So if somebody says that to you, you say, it's hard to tell without understanding the full scope of the role. And you can also say, look, I'm in a few conversations at the moment, so I want to know what you offering. This is the way that we do things internally at xDesign, because we want things to be fair, both to internal and external candidates. So we know what we pay a high level, like a top level, like senior, like level 1, like principal, for example. So there's no huge discrepancy, because I feel like that contributes to the gap like so much. So knowing the range up front is going to help you when it gets to those negotiations. Do you know that your offer is at the top of the range? Amazing. Is your offer at the lower end of the range? If so, you can ask why. Was there anything that I was missing? If you don't know what that number is, you're going to find it a lot harder when it comes to the end. And if they don't know what the budget is, then I'm sorry, they're lying. Like, they've all got finance people. So they have to give you a number. So I think, honestly, it's only fair. And another question, what's your current salary? Absolutely never. Do not give anybody that, because it literally doesn't matter. There's so many reasons why somebody's being paid a salary that they shouldn't be paid. So if anybody asks that, like, sometimes people will just say, we just want to make sure everybody's getting a good like step up, but it shouldn't really be a contributing factor to it. So that's some of the things that you might encounter at the initial stage. So this is positioning yourself for that offer. Now you've got to the final stage. Okay, it's a little bit nerve-wracking. So, you know, recruiters' numbers ringing up on your phone, and you're just like, oh God, what's this going to be? And I'm really excited to want to extend you an offer. And hopefully you know what the range is, but you may not, and it may be a little bit lower than you expected. I think essentially how I would approach that is thank them, first of all. You may be a little bit disappointed. Just try not to like let them hear it in your voice. I know that's really hard. Just be like, oh, damn it. Just say, honestly, thank you so much. Really enjoyed the interviews. Really enjoyed everybody that I met with. I would love some time just to go away and think about this, if that's okay. And just say, can we pencil in a catch up maybe like later today or tomorrow? That's the point where you want to gather your facts. If you've been given interview feedback, use that in your sell. So you can buy yourself a little bit of time. It gives them time to think about it, and they know that like you're not making an immediate decision. If you have some really positive feedback, then what you're going to do when you go onto that recruiter call and say, look, thank you so much. Like, I've gone away and like I've had to think about it, but as you mentioned, the salary range is this. Like, I'd just love to understand, was there anything that I was missing so that I can hit the higher end of the level? If they have a good justification for it, you want to understand what the pay review process is, which is obviously a little bit later on. But again, from a recruiter, it's completely reasonable to ask for like 3 to 5 working days to make a decision. Just only thing I'd say is like, don't keep us in the dark. Which is all good. But I think having that confidence is basically what you're saying, like using your market knowledge. Please don't say, but the salary is on Glassdoor, say this. You can use your other offers as well, and hopefully whoever you're talking to, you probably built a really good relationship with, so they'll probably want to do that for you. And I'll tell you now, like most of the time, hiring managers, a couple of K is, interviewing is very expensive in terms of people hours. Chris is nodding, totally agreed. Yeah, so basically, just to summarise that, know your market, build relationships, ask people like me for advice. Say like, Parul, look, I've got this situation. What do you want? Oh, I'm not the only person, by the way, but anybody that you know, just say like, look, what would you do in this situation? Ask for the advice, do your research on the market. If you've got other offers, obviously talk about those. And if you know the salary banding, that's going to put you at like a massive advantage. But just know, if like people do say, look, it's at the top of the band, then it probably is at the top of the band. I really wish we didn't have to have these conversations, but unfortunately, I do genuinely think we are doing things the right way. If you're a senior, I'll say this is what we offer. When we go through the interview process, you know, dependent on obviously how strong like different aspects are, both interpersonal and technical skills, we'll base it off that, and we'll tell you what you can do to essentially like progress. So if anybody is in a hiring position here, please do it that way, because it makes it so much fair. Like, let's not make people fight for their salary, because the thing is, a lot of people don't. So that's where we end up with the gap. So I'm just going to finish off quickly talking about pay reviews. So a performance review is not a pay review. So This is something that I've spoke to quite a lot of people about, and they've been maybe like disappointed because they've had a performance review and it's not resulted in a pay review. I actually recommend asking about how this process works before you start. I think that's totally normal, especially if you've negotiated a little bit and you'll say, okay, yeah, I'll take, 65. What's the pay review and like promotion process look like? Like what do I need to essentially get to that next level? That's a great time to ask, actually. So what you want to understand is like, what are the pay reviews based off? How often are they going to be? Are they every 6 months, every 12 months? And once you understand that, then you actually know how much like you're going to move up. And I think it's all right. I think I've told people to ask in the interview process kind of like, how does it work? What's kind of like average, increase like year on year? I think the average report started this year, it's about like 3 to 5%. So understanding how the process works so that you're not kind of like blindsided. And if you're not getting a review in 12 months and you've asked for it, then I think you know what to do. Okay, so I genuinely think if there's like one big thing that you take away from this is start keeping brag documents. So I will share a template in the resources and an article that you can read. So a brag document is essentially what it says on the tin. So we recently started using a platform called Lattice, which is basically like a personal development, just kind of see your skills, what do you want to build on, which is really great to track it. You can ask for feedback and it's very transparent. Even if you have something like that, or maybe you don't, brag documents are great because you can set a reminder, like weekly, you can do it monthly, because you're not going to remember so many of the things that you've done. Like most people tell me, like, what are their top 5 achievements of this week so far? I don't remember what I ate this morning. So, like, I actually don't. So, what did I have? Sausage and egg bagel, that was lovely. But so what I'm trying to get at is like, if you don't remember what you've done, especially the like what I call the fuzzy stuff. So it's not like the big things like delivering a really, hitting a deadline, migrating to newer tech or anything. Just some of the smaller things. If you don't remember what they are, how do you expect your manager to? So when it comes to those reviews, and you're going to sit there and you're going to try and justify why you want the higher salary, you're going to have a lot harder of a conversation to have. So make it easier for you. So I'm a big fan of like Notion. I love making all like templates and everything. So you can make your own on there. You can set a reminder for yourself. And these are some of the things that like you can include. I mean, happy to hear any suggestions. But for example, if you're like conducting interviews, if you're shaping an interview process, if you're like continuously contributing to improving like the engineering practices, knowledge sharing. So maybe you started doing some like mobbing or like parent sessions, mentoring new people that come into the business and contributing to the wider business. So like not just your team. So maybe like you're in front end and you've been like collaborating with like back end or like cloud and platform on something. So start to keep track of those. Also, it's really good when it comes to writing your CV, because I had to do that not so long ago. And honestly, my job is helping people with this. But when I tell you, I was literally crying into my laptop because I was like, I don't know what I've done for the last 2 years. It was so difficult. So again, just make that easy for yourself. It's a little tool. I'm sure everybody will probably keep them in a different way, but the principle is that you have to advocate for yourself. Even if you might have a really, really nice manager, no one is going to have your back as much as you are, basically. I'm just going on to the final slides. Really hope people actually recognise the song, The Clash, Should I Stay or Should I Go? So I have a story on this one as well. So I had a developer reach out to me on LinkedIn and she was asking for some advice. So she's been at her company for about 1.5 years. I knew that she really enjoyed it, and she messaged me and she said, I'm stuck because in process they're talking about a promotion and a pay rise, but it's slow moving, and I've got loads of recruiters ringing me up and saying they can get me roles with like 50, 55k. Like, what should I do? Like, do you think this is reasonable? Do you think I should go for like the interviews and everything? And I said, I'm so glad you asked me, because I think sometimes it's really easy to be tempted by that number in your inbox, especially if maybe the promotion and the pay reviews is still an ongoing process. So I said to her, because I knew what her experience was, I said, I'm going to be 100% honest. Like, I'm Switzerland in this situation, right? I'm neutral. I don't, like, get anything out of this. So I said to her, I said, there's going to be a handful of companies that can offer you 50, 55k. It's at the much higher end of the range, actually, what kind of, like, your experience would be. Not to obviously kind of bring it down, but I'm just saying, like, just being, like, completely realistic. Once you start getting into those processes, they tend to be the companies that bring it down a notch a little bit on the off end, like, oh, this is, you know, like our top end. And I said, is it just about the money? Is there anything else that is actually missing in your role? Do you like the tech, you know, you're working with? Do you like the people? Like, is there anything else? And she went away and she had to think about it. And she said, you know what, there actually wasn't. It was just looking at that number. And obviously it's great to get more money and get everybody really excited. And she said, even with the pay review, even if there's a bit of a gap, she would have much rather have stayed. So she made that decision. So, and don't know everyone's financial situation and everything, but especially since she was at the earlier part of her career, said the companies that you spend your first couple of years on are absolutely pivotal to laying the foundations for, you're going to end up having to undo bad habits and bad practices and things. And she just loved it. She was getting so much out of it. So again, not so long from being like an agency recruiter, and I totally get it. Like, you've got deals to do, you've got like money to make. I get it. But if you're ever in that situation, always ask somebody for some impartial advice as well, and just stack it up, because there's always going to be more money elsewhere. But let's be honest, like, we all spend, like, you know, 40 odd hours of our week in work. If you love the people around you, you feel like you're doing like meaningful work, have those conversations about like the reviews, because let's be honest, like, all hiring managers, they know how many of us recruiters are in your devs inboxes, and they're probably trying to do everything to just, you know, make you happy. So that's why, again, advocate for like the pay reviews, move for the promotions, be really transparent about like what you need to do on like both sides to actually like push you forwards. And that brings us to the end of the talk. So if anybody wants to stick any questions, it's on the same thing, or you can just put your hands up if you want. Does anybody have anything? No? Go on.